Muslim tak nak ah. Muslim keluar.
Tadi tu. Tadi tu. Pokok atas tu je.
We started day 2 with a few parallel sessions this morning and a plenary session by the Director of English Language Teaching Center, Puan Faramadi binti Aman. And now, let us proceed to the next on the agenda, which is our forum, entitled Reimagining English Language Education in a Post-Pandemic World. It is with great honor to have with us today on stage a list of esteemed and distinguished panelists, And allow me to introduce our moderator for today's forum, Associate Professor Dr. Ramesh Nair from Academy of Language Studies, University Technology Mara, Shah Alam. Right, Dr. Ramesh will be taking over soon. But before that, our list of panelists today, Yang Berbahagia Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Dr. Dzulkifli Abdul Razak, Rector of the International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. Yang Berbahagia Datin Noor Azimah Abdul Rahim, Chairman Parents Action Group for Education. Professor Dr. Suresh Kumar from Faculty of Medicine, University Malaya. And last but not least, we have with us today Professor Dr. Abtar Kaur Darshan Singh from UNESCO Malaysia Chair. Okay, without further delay, I would like to pass the floor to Associate Professor Dr. Ramesh Nair. Over to you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mimi. I hope you can hear me. No? Can you? Testing? Can you hear me? Yes, all right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Mimi. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to moderate this forum session with a panel of distinguished guests. And our topic today is on reimagining English language education. So, before we talk about reimagining English language education, I think we should start by talking about how English language education was imagined for this nation, decades ago. I think all of us are products of Malaysian education system. And we went through, English language education. It could be in different decades, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, some of you here. And so what have we done right? What have been our successes in terms of English language education? And what are aspects of English language education that we need to do better? So maybe I can start by posing this question to you, Tan Sri.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum. Greeting of peace and a very good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me. I guess I'm the oldest person in the room. So talking about experience is a long way to go. Let me start off by admitting that my English wasn't good. Our family were basically Malay speaking. My father and my mother were teachers, and they are Malay school teachers. And therefore, English is something which is also not easy for me, right? But I will say the credit I will have now to speak to you is I've been a columnist for the local newspapers for 27 years, a weekly columnist. And when I reflect back, I've been writing columns every week for 27 years. I can't imagine that as well. So that probably is my credentials when I talked about what this experience is all about. Now, how do you transit from that sort of experience to where we are now? I would like to give credit to the system. In other words, the system has sustained me. Maybe I'm the lucky one, I'm not too sure. But I'm sure this experience repeatable, other people can share this. And I just want to focus now on what is doable and what we can make sense in the immediate future. We have been demonizing the system for a long time. And I think we have not gone across in trying to make it better. And I don't want to repeat that experience again. So that next year when I come here, we were talking about reimagining something else, but still at the same point where we were maybe 5 to 10 years ago. So what can we do immediately? My take on this is basically not good in English, but what made me kind of have the courage to try. And I think this is because I was given at that particular time the space to practice the language. It is not just about learning about English. There's this classroom work to be past, present tense. Until now, I don't understand this. Yeah? But just by speaking and understanding what this language is all about, through practical experiences, is the one that gives you, I think, first of all, courage and confidence. You dare to make mistakes, people will correct you on the spot or otherwise, or people can make fun of you, it's okay. But that's part of the learning that I went through in schools and also when I was in the university. So to give that space for people to speak and make sure that, you know, they have this confidence and also the keenness to learn, I think is basically the basis of all this. And when I go to the university, why I started the column, I was challenged again. He says, can you write in English? You know, I say, why not? So I tried my first column then. It was difficult to write a column of 800 words, yeah, to express what you want in that short paragraph with the kind of a vocabulary you got. It's a struggle. But after 25 years, I can write a column now within 2 hours, within 4 hours. In other words, given that experience, and I think the question that I'm going to ask you, do our students have this chance, opportunity to have that experience? Without the experience, you can teach them in classroom, then they'll probably not be able to do it. It's just like playing football. Huh? You can read so many books of how to be a good footballer, but until you go down and start to kick the ball and know what to do with the ball with your own leg, you will never be a good footballer. So I want to go back to that kind of an experience. Do our students have the experience to actually make the mistake, build the courage, build the confidence, and become a speaker at the end of the day on his own rights? And then you can go back what learning to be is all about, because you now have a resemblance of what this language is all about. Especially coming from Bahasa Malaysia, we don't have past tense, we don't have future tense, we don't have all this difficult thing that the English people have got. Yeah? In pronunciation, tak betul, but, but put, put. Why not pat? You know, these are issues that I think later on you learn at the end of the day what this language is all about, and I think you need to experience it. I think learning by doing is my take on this. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're talking about the communicative approach to language teaching, where you find yourself in a classroom where you're allowed to practice and to use the language. And this is something which is not alien to us. I think even back a few decades ago when I trained as a teacher, it was already the communicative approach, the KBSM, the KBSR. And so that forms the foundation of English language education in Malaysia. And yet, there are serious concerns about where our students are now in terms of their proficiency in the language. So maybe I'll move on to you, Prof. Abtar. Your experience with English language education, where do you think our successes have been and where have our shortcomings been?
Okay. Thank you so much. And this is very interesting how YBhg Tan Sri had started off. And I think I'm going to go along the same path to share my experiences. I speak 4 languages, but I was never in the classroom for at least 3 of the languages. So what does that tell us? So what does that actually tell us? That tells us quite a lot. I used to speak perfect Chinese Hokkien language, and when people did not see me, they thought that was a Chinese girl there, speaking this language. So it was the more of the immersiveness of the language, using of the language, and how you just grew, with people around you speaking the same language. So coming back to the classroom, right? I just want to quote something which is affecting me quite a bit, which I read. The World Bank did a study and found that in low and middle income communities around the world, 53% of 10-year-olds cannot read and comprehend a paragraph. And this is from the formal system. So if in a formal system where children go to classroom and teachers are in the classroom and a language, it does not mean it's just English, a language is being used, and 10-year-olds cannot read and 10-year-olds cannot read and comprehend a paragraph, I think that is something that we really need to seriously think about and reflect if in Malaysia something similar is happening. Are our students in our language classes able to be at the level that the curriculum has designed for them? And if not, then what is the issue? For us, when we were growing up, there was no issue about the language, learning the language, mainly because we had access and we were motivated ourselves to get to the books. We were self-motivated. But I think these days, our students in our classroom are not as self-motivated as we were a long time ago. So then, what is the strategy that the teachers need to use in the classrooms to ensure that our students in our classrooms are able to then meet those curriculum standards set by the Ministry of Education? So you see, when the ministry devised a curriculum, right, they have done a lot of prior study on how that curriculum had to be enacted in the classroom, right? My experience as a teacher educator for the past 30 years shows me that most of the time our teachers are, if our students are not there, it takes two to tango, the students as well as the teachers. But being a teacher and having gone through great teachers, I know great teachers can make a huge impact on us, on the learning process. Now, then going back to our teachers, right, I feel from then and now, currently, I think there is a gap. And most of the times, we have found out through our research, the gap is in the alignment of the process, of the teaching and learning process, the alignment. Now, the ministry, as I say again, has done a great job with the curriculum. But our teachers may not have come up to that level to be able to translate. So there is a gap, a training gap that I think we need to address. Our teachers need to be trained further in terms of alignment of the learning process. So any learning process. So in the English language, I think what we found was from our work with teachers, that most of the time the biggest problem is they are even unable to determine what is the outcome for that 40 minutes they are with the students. When they are unable to determine that accurately, they are unable to translate it to the students. So I think the issue is we need to look at this issue, the alignment issue. And the alignment starts with the learning outcome, the content that needs to support the learning outcome, and the activities that the students will do to enable us to ensure the students have achieved that has been set for the 40 minutes. Because nowadays, all of us are talking about by the end of this session, the student will be able to. So how do you determine if you have 40 or 50 students? How do you determine if they were able to? And there was something that the panel spoke about earlier, that giving homework and asking students to just copy whatever the answers that have been provided. I don't think that homework should be given after class. Whatever the students need to do should be done before. Homework should be preparation for the next class, not homework given as an after-class thing. Because when we say by the end of this session, students will be able to, we need to ensure that they have achieved that. And if you want to enhance that, you can go ahead and give, but that has to be brought back to the next session. So in effect, what I'm trying to say is, the kind of students we are getting these days are a totally different breed. And I'm not sure if teacher training practices have changed. So if teacher training practices have not changed drastically, then what we are doing is something in the past, and we are getting these millennials who are unable to come up to our expectations because we are using some strategies that may not meet their needs. I will talk later about the technology part, how you will determine that 40, 50 students are able to achieve it, but I'll stop for now. I hope this is something
Yeah,
that...
I'm sure the classroom practitioners here would be keen to share their thoughts on what you've shared just now. You talked about 10, 11-year-old children who are not as proficient as what we expect them to be. But this is true even in universities, right? When we receive students, we expect students to be fairly proficient to manage whatever that they need to manage in the English language. And so what happens is the universities blame the post-secondary system, the post-secondary teachers blame the secondary school teachers, the secondary school teachers blame the primary school teachers. So, if I put myself in the position of the classroom practitioner, the teacher will say, look, I'm teaching a Form 2 class, the syllabus is provided to me, but there is a certain takeoff point where the students need to be at for me to deliver the lessons effectively, but the students are not where they should be, where they need to be. So there's this issue of accountability of, when we pass a student from one level to the other, what kind of communication takes place? And do teachers actually have this conversation to advise the receiving teacher about where the student is, so that more attention can be given to wherever the student is, whatever areas the student is struggling with. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this, and welcome you to share your thoughts later. I will be looking at my device from time to time because this event is going live and there may be questions coming in as well. So I'm not, like your teenage kid looking at the phone, yeah? I am looking at questions. But I will come back to this. Thank you, Prof. Abtar. Over to you, Prof. Suresh. Can you share your thoughts, please?
See, all the three speakers are so united that we use only one mic.
Yes.
Yeah. So, firstly, thank you. I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this honor of sharing the same stage with such amazing, prestigious panel members. So, our experience here, from the credibility point of view, is that I also represent the Satisai Academy for Human Values, where I'm the director of the academy. The academy instituted a program called ROSE. ROSE means reaching out to students with English. And the experience of that will be detailed after lunch, where some of our colleagues will be presenting their findings. After teaching or training 3,500 students, their students appear to grasp the English, or at least to some higher levels of proficiency, because the basic difference is that we focus on building confidence. See, the history of human civilization is the history of how a language is used to convey and communicate ideals, thoughts, processes, and so on. And the more and more we become proficient in that language, more and more people will tend to absorb and move on. So in the same way, today's students, as what the second speaker has really said, the level of confidence have come down. Today, on the 22nd of June, WHO released a statement saying that in this world, there is more than 1 billion people mentally affected today, now, which is in the human population today is 8 billion people, so that's about 1 in 8, and that's reported. Okay, so unreported normally you double up, so that means every 1 in 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, there 1, 2, 3. So every 1 in 4, there is this problem of mental issues. So confidence levels are escalating down, I mean really going down in younger people especially. On the 27th of August, the Journal of Psychology reports that 18 to 25 years of age, where they did a study, and they found out this group of people is very much compromised in terms of life satisfaction, confidence levels, virtues, financial insecurity. Everything has collapsed. A meta-analysis involving 47 countries where they studied the youth levels and found and echoed the same points. So technically what is very much alarming to see that the landscape has now become so diverse and different that the children that are coming into the classrooms today are a totally different group of people. And this is what we also experience at the university levels as well. So we know that they are changing. So once we know that this group of people are changing and we continue repeating and parroting the same story, oh, during our time, we used to do this, during this time, we used to do that, it'll be the same song, you know. Nowadays, we go to young people and tell them, you know, I'm in this job for 25 years, you only hardly 2 years and you want to change the job. The reply is that you have been so foolish enough to stay in a job for 25 years, don't blame that onto us. So this is the way they see the world. You and I will think of buying a house and becoming settled down and so on. Younger generation don't think like that. They say rental is cukup lah, tapa. You know, that's the kind of thing that they're doing. You are thinking of marriage and producing children. They say not necessary. It's okay. So it's not about anchoring now. It's not about solidifying. So the mind has changed. So if the mind has changed, if you want language, leave alone English language or maths or science or anything, the key thing that we need to focus is on what is it that we are doing now to enable confidence to be blossom in the child. That is the essence. Then you find with confidence you can put anything you want to put, no problem. They will have the Today the point is they are so scared to make a mistake. They are so scared to fall. And in fact, when they're so scared that people will laugh at them. That is the problem. So insecurity is the highest problem in the younger generation. So question asked is now, what are the teachers doing to develop confidence? Now you only got 45 minutes in a class or 45 minutes. You parachute into the class and you finish the class and you come back. Yes, the lesson has been completed, agreed. It's like the doctor who went to the operation theater and came out and said, operation very successful, but the patient died. What use is of that? What use is of that thing? Because the whole idea of an operation is to make the patient live. In the same way, if you enter into a class, whether the subject matter has been taught, whether the students are developing confidence, probably we need to now radically change the way we are approaching a class, radically change the way in which we teach certain things. We need to change. We need to don't think about completing it, but do it in such a manner that you can assess whether the child is actually receiving it. And it all will depend upon the intimacy between the teacher and the student, which is what mentioned in the. So it's a transformation that we spoke about. So if you look at it, the first speaker spoke about confidence, C. This is not arranged, I'm just telling. Second speaker spoke about alignment, which is A. I'm speaking about transformation. If you look at it, CAT is cat. Now the cat is out of the bag. So if this cat is out of the bag, now how do we move it? Otherwise, this, again, one more point I just want to mention. Conferences have the plenty of conferences. We come in and go out and come in and go out. You must have had a conference last time also, 3 years ago also, you must have had a conference. Question is now we know. Now, after this, there must be some very powerful resolutions, powerful changes of ways in which we're doing, so that the next time when we come here and speak, we will be speaking about how is this conference has helped and shaped moving the entire moving the agenda forward. I think that makes a lot of difference. And I think all of us, all panelists here are very much forward for making this to move to one other level. I think if you develop confidence, we've got our students. Our students are generally bright. They're okay. It's just that we need to pull them out from their comfort zone that they are already so accustomed to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. So it is you talk about the approach to teaching, which cannot be the same as it was before. Datin, Prof. Abtar brought up the issue of teacher training, and I know that in the papers recently you posed a rather radical idea about the setting up of English language medium schools, with the idea that such schools will produce the kind of teachers that we need. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Okay. Good Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here and listening to me. I think first of all, since they all had an opportunity to say, to speak of how they learned English in their youth, I would like to say a little bit as well. I think now my father, he's not dead yet. My mother is late, but my father is still around. He's 94. And yeah, he was with the government and we were always moving. And I think I counted, I went to actually 11 schools, primary to secondary, because we were all over the place. And what I remember from school is that it was so much fun. Whether or not I learned anything, I'm not sure. But I remember that I didn't like to read, I didn't like to write. And now I'm reading a lot and I'm writing a lot because it was forced upon me when I took up my first job at Bank Negara. So now I write for The Age, and I have been writing for The Age, I think for the last, I've just been reminded, for the last 7 years, I think. And I don't know if anybody reads what I write, but never mind. But one of the things I have been advocating in The Age is that, you know, the public is very concerned about the level of English in general. And they expect English language teachers to be more than what they are. But how can they be more than what they already are if English language teachers come from a Malay medium environment? I've spoken to some English language teachers in the past few days. Some of you are totally outstanding. But I think only the best of the English language teachers are here. And that's what I see. I don't think that, how can we move up to the next level? How can we jumpstart the system? So I have this idea, which I've been talking about for the last few years, but nobody's taken any interest in it. But you know, English medium schools is something that's taboo. Nobody dares speak about English medium schools because it's politically incorrect to do so. But okay, let's forget English medium schools. How about an English medium school or an English school at secondary level just to produce English language teachers? Is that a possibility? Because you're supposed to imagine, right? And imagining starts from dreaming. So can we have, say, an English language school at secondary level in every state? All we need is just one English school in every state, so that this school will be fully immersed in the English language, and this will, in turn, provide the supply of English language teachers. First of all, I think in the last retirement batch, we saw 10,000 more teachers leaving the teaching profession, largely English language teachers. You know, so this will provide a constant supply of language teachers, of English language teachers. And when I brought this up the last time, I think IGuru came up and said, you are neglecting the B40 students. So let's let the B40 students be students of this English language school. And every time we talk about English medium schools, the nationalists will come out and say so many things, and then it gets buried again. But I think if, as far as the sultans of states are concerned, I think they're very happy to have this English language school to produce English language teachers only. And I definitely think that State of Johor will welcome it. And I think that I've even been told that sultans want these schools to be in their states. And I think easily Negeri Sembilan, Perak will want these schools, and Johor will want these schools. And when the other sultans know that these states are allowing these English language schools to open, I think they will want the same as well. So I think here we are, let's dream and keep dreaming, and maybe one day it will become reality. And since the minister is talking about sekolah sejahtera and English medium school is a bad word, let's call it academy sejahtera. And if it is difficult to set up, let's think of going around the problem of these schools. You know, it could be, if international schools can exist, why can't this be an international school type? It can be funded. It can come under Ministry of Finance, maybe funded by the Ministry of Finance, but it falls under the Ministry of Education, the operations of it. So I think there are many ways of doing this. There are some ways of doing this. We need the legal eagles to come in and see how this can be done without, stepping on anyone's toes. So I think this is a possibility, and I think that this will ensure that there is a constant supply of English language teachers, and that we have to be looking at a next level of quality of English. Thank you.
Yeah. Ansri, you'd like to respond?
Thank you for that alternative, Datin. But I think the remedy, the examples are already here. I mean, you may craft it in a different language. But I work with Sekolah Amanah, trust schools. Yeah, this probably, I was the chairman of that social entrepreneurship, we called it. And I think there are, close to 100 Sekolah Amanah. I'm not sure, how many of you have heard Sekolah Amanah before? Trust schools. That school is the normal school. Everything else stays the same. What is different is the approach. The approach of alignment, the approach of courage. All the approaches are different because that school, I think, has got, quote unquote, its own autonomy away from the Kementerian. In other words, they are allowed to do things that will raise confidence, that will give them space, that will use language in the way it should be used. As a kind of a medium of instruction, what have you. What I'm trying to say is that we don't have to reinvent another school. There's already this existing school. All we need to do is to put everything in its proper perspective. If you're not only about teaching languages, it's about teaching the students to be who they are. And language is one of those. It is not, we are not building this school just because we want to learn English. We can learn English, but we are not creative, we cannot think, we are still subservient, we are very compliant, we will still not get away with the problem. You speak English, but you are still the same passive Malaysian that will sit down and listen and take instruction and doesn't move forward. I think that's not the solution. The solution is how do you create a 21st century student inclusive of the language. After all, the blueprint says dual bilingualism. It could be English, it could be Bahasa, it could be English and Chinese. Already I was reading the newspaper today. Egypt is now going to introduce Chinese apart from Arabic. So this bilingualism is something that we can imagine or reimagine if you want to. But I think the structure is already there. My question is basically, how do ministry wants to embrace this structure? The school is the same school I've mentioned. The only difference is that the methodology, the way the students are trained, the way teachers are trained. For example, I know for a fact that when the school is run almost automatically by the student. This class I know started by the student. The student will introduce, we're going to learn this today. These are the objectives of learning and these are the outcomes of learnings. Before they end the class, they will say, how much of this outcome have we met? You know, and the teaching, I think, is very communicative. They teach one another. If somebody has made a mistake, the group, the cluster that they are in will teach them, why do you make this mistake? How can we correct it? So there is this communicative element is already there. Not like now, everybody sits in the classroom just like this, and you listen to one old man speaking, and you just nod your head at the end of the day. You know, and there's no communication at all within that classroom. There's no interest in trying to teach one another, you know. And I think this is where we have gone wrong. Our school is not a 21st century school. We call it 21st century school because of the technology. We have got one screen, this is 21st century school, you know. We've got one technology, this is 21st. But the whole approach is still the 20th century, if not the 19th century. You read books by Ken Robinson. Even Ken Robinson says the school in Europe is a 19th century school. Harvard's still like this. The best university in the world, they still use these factory sort of images. You know, we need to move away from the kind of school. So we are talking about education, and that where language needs to fall in. If education is still about this kind of a passive learning, then I think whatever language you put in, you will end up. They are passive. Now we are passive in Bahasa Malaysia, the next one they'll be passive in English. Because education is not what it used to be. I mean, Suresh talked about public speaking. Public speaking is one of the worst things. If you talk about what the most frightening thing is public speaking. To go there and open your mouth and say whatever you want to say and let everybody judge you. When we become the teacher, when I become the lead teacher, I'm a lecturer at that particular point, that very nervous to start on the first day. And there was a small anecdote, if you want. Yeah? And Hercules and the lion, you know this story, yeah? And Hercules is one of the slaves that the Roman got, and they threw him in the ring together with the lion. And he is supposed to fight. If he can kill the lion, then Hercules will be set free. Otherwise, he'll be eaten up by the lion, you know. And as usual, of course, the lion overwhelmed Hercules. And everybody was worried that Hercules will die. But they saw the Hercules whisper something to the tiger, a lion. And then after the lion just walked away. And Hercules was saved. At the end of it, they asked him, what is it that you whisper to the lion that the lion will walk away? I told the lion this, if you kill me, you need after this to give a public address. You know? The moment the lion listened to the public address, I might as well walk away. You know, I will not be able to give this public address. Now, public address is something which is so difficult to do because it takes courage, it takes confidence. You must think on your feet, you know. And I had this example. When my student days, when we want to question the minister on certain things that I'm not happy about, I felt that the place that from my seat to the mic, maybe 1,000 miles so far away, you know. But I say, what the hell? I will just give it a try. But the moment you do that, you break that mindset, then you are set free. So does our student have that opportunity? I'm asking you again. The school is there, the setup is there, but is the opportunity given to the student? Now I was told that if you criticize a student, my daughter said that some animals, the teacher said something and my daughter corrected her and said, that's not the animal, this is a platypus. And she needs to stand at the back of the room because correcting the teacher. You know, if that's the kind of nonsense we have got in our classroom, then bring as many technology as you want. You will never change anything. So it's a mindset change. Yeah, it's something that you need to be humble enough also to deliver this kind of education. If we are able to do that, then I think we should be able to do it. I have full confidence that we can do it, but there must be a change. When the minister says something that you don't agree, would you raise up your hand and say, YB, ini saya tak setuju? I ask the teacher sometimes, dia kata tak berani, lepas tu kami kena pindah, kena tukar. I mean, if at the point of just being transferred out of the school, you will then, sacrifice one generation, I think you ought not to be a teacher. You should be a bureaucratic staff somewhere and just take things down, you know. A teacher is very revolutionary. A teacher is very reformist. A teacher must take sacrifice. We are called as a candle, yeah? We light ourselves to bring lights to the room while we burn ourselves at the same time. That is a teacher. That is what I learned from my father, who is a teacher. But I don't think this candle is there anymore because the whole construct of education has changed. And we are just about economy. As long as the students are unemployed, it's fine. What sort of a person, I think, is not the issue. I hope we will change that for the next time, inshallah.
Thank you. Ultimately, the success of English language education is dependent on what happens in the English language classroom. And the English language teacher is a central variable in this success. And often English language teachers become easy targets as well, the classroom practitioner. Yes, there have been, the ministry has acknowledged issues with proficiency. They've also addressed this now by asking teachers to show evidence of proficiency, but it's not just enough to be proficient, you've got to be able to deliver lessons well. Pedagogy is also important. And so you have teacher education, you have in-service training which needs to take place throughout one's career because we are professionals. But let's focus a little bit on leadership and the role of leadership in ensuring that the quality of English language education improves. Maybe I can pose this to Prof. Suresh first before Prof. Abtar shares your thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
It's okay, I think it's working now. Yeah, I think before that, if you don't mind, I just want to pick up a little bit on what Datin said. I think, Datin, this agenda that you have, this dream, I think it can be a reality. As you said, if we have all these international schools that are set up, why not? I mean, it just have to go one more step. And I think I would rally behind you for this, because I think it is important that we have teachers who are confident. I think that is the key word, yeah? They have to have that. I mean, I'm sure they feel it themselves, you know, when they are in the classroom, if they cannot get it out to the students in the language that they need to do, I'm sure they feel it. And I think we need to bring up confident teachers, and how to do that. I think we already have a solution, Datin, and probably we should bring it to the higher levels and get it started. I'd also like to pick on what Dr. Prof. Suresh mentioned about the doctor saying that operation was successful but the patient died. Now, in education, we also have something similar. I just want to tell you a very small story about how Tim trained his dog. So Tim told Tom, I taught my dog how to bark. And Tom said to Tim, I don't hear your dog barking. He said, I told you I taught him. I didn't say he learned. Okay? So similarly, in the classrooms, I think this is where the pedagogical thing comes about. And also another story around pedagogy. I was in Sri Lanka training some lecturers who were with the Technical Institute of Teacher Training Technical Institute. To my horror, I found that those trainers themselves were unable even to do to have the better pedagogical aspects of teaching and learning. Now, if the trainers themselves, this is one story only, yeah? I'm not generalizing it, but I think there is point for reflection. So teacher trainers who were teaching teachers how to teach better, they themselves were not fully equipped with the kind of knowledge and skills and competencies. So again, as you were saying, Ramesh, that when students come to university, the blame goes down, to the schools. Similarly, the blame about teachers being adequately trained can also go to the different levels of teacher training as well. Now, so we have pre and we have in-service teacher training. I think the in-service teacher training, like what is being done, needs to identify the needs. I think the biggest problem we found through our research on teachers going for in-service training is most of the time, and this is not in Malaysia, yeah, it was in Dubai, but they have similar problems. They say most of the time we are forced to go for training. And we were trying to solve, me and my PhD student was trying to find out what is the best way to do this then. So nowadays we know that there are a lot of things that you can do with technology. Okay? How many of you have done, gone into micro-credentials? You have taken some courses that are micro-credential based. Micro-credentials? No? Okay, a few of you. Anybody who's on LinkedIn Learning? LinkedIn Learning? You see, there's a lot out there for even our teachers to self-train so that you can come up to the level that you feel you don't have that confidence yet. So I would shout out to our teachers. But before that, I have seen our teachers done great things with technology during the pandemic. I think this is a shout out to you for doing all those great things during the pandemic. A lot of our teachers came up and did things that they would not have done, in a normal circumstance. But during the pandemic, I saw a lot of good cases. In fact, it was through ELTC again that I came to know about all these teachers who have done the great, use technology to reach out to the students. But I think the teachers had their constraints because the technology is there, but the students do not have those technological appliances, they don't have the connection and all those other problems. But I think they did try. But for those who tried and did not know how well it went, I think this is where you need to self-train and you need to pick up a little bit more. So my thing about reimagining education is not for teachers to wait for the ministry or anybody to dish out training to you. You, just like our students who have changed, you need to change as well, or you have changed maybe, I'm sure you have changed. You go and seek out for the training that will benefit you according to your needs. Because the biggest issue that we found out was teachers, we are always forced. The ministry have this program, we are forced to go and attend these courses. We don't want to go, but we are forced. So don't allow anybody to force you, please. Have a say in what is the training that will benefit you as a language teacher. There are countless free online programs for you. So go and look out for those, okay? You can go to Coursera, edX, and even don't go to Coursera, edX. Just go and Google for free language learning pedagogy, link to how to pedagogically enhance your classrooms for English language. You will find countless. So take it upon yourself that you want to improve. If you see there is a gap somewhere, try to close that gap, because that will give you the biggest C that we used to tell our teachers that when you teach, make sure you incorporate the ARCS model, the ARCS. How many of you have heard about ARCS? If you are a teacher, I think if you have not heard about I see one hand. Excellent. One hand is good enough. Now, ARCS is a basic thing. A for attention, R for relevance, C for confidence. There you go. We already have it in our pedagogical structure that we need to do to deliver in a way that we will enhance the confidence of our students. C, the big C. Who knows what is the S? Okay, apart from the lady or the guy who put up the hand. What is the S? A-R-C. What is the S? Anybody? Come to the microphone. S? Exactly. Satisfaction. So, thank you. So you need to get the students to come out of the classroom talking about your lesson. How great it was. So how you manage that lesson is all within you, teachers. Do not blame anybody else. If your students are not doing well, look upon yourself, how you can make it better for your students. Because that 40 minutes is entrusted in you as a teacher. You go into that classroom, that 40 minutes, 50 minutes, or double the classroom, or double the teaching time, is all within your power. You are such a great leader in the classroom if you do it right. And only your students will be praying to you, actually. Because if you are doing a great effect, you have a great effect on your students, they carry it for life. I carry the effect my teachers have on me for life. I mean, whenever I think of my whole learning process, can you imagine, I can only point to 2 teachers who were great. How sad. Only 2 teachers. Can you imagine if all those teachers were great? We'll probably be in Mars by now. Yeah, so teachers, I think since Ramesh brought up the pedagogical aspect of teaching and learning, I'm educational technologist. but I always place technology at the end. My focus still is on great pedagogy. Greatest pedagogy is the alignment of the teaching learning process. Within the alignment process are all the models that we use, the arcs, the constructivist approach. Tan Sri spoke about, how you must change the classroom environment. This, we have been talking about this, right, since the 1920s, actually. 1920s, the greatest educator said that he went into constructivism because he didn't want to see students sitting in neat rows when the teaching and learning process is happening. But we are still doing this. Students sitting in neat rows. All of you again sitting in neat rows today. So I think teachers, you have the power to change what you want in your students. This is my constant message, and I hope for reimagining education post-COVID, there are two things, if you all don't mind, can I have a bit more time? You need to first identify what are the gaps in your students for the past 2 years. There have been a great learning loss in the past 2 years. You need to identify that loss first, teachers, because if you continue with your current syllabus without identifying what the students have lost, you are not going to even move another inch further, because you are going to have students sitting in your classroom who are staring at you, whereas you are moving in your own path because you have a syllabus to finish. So there are ways to address the loss. There are ways, and I hope post this conference, as Professor have mentioned, we will take some steps to identify how do we move forward, especially with English language. If for the past 2 years, they have lost completely the language and the proficiencies related to the language, and then you come back and say, okay, now let's start from where the syllabus is, I think this is going to be a great disservice we are doing to our students. So there's something called condensed curriculum. Please Google it, and because we can't do a lot today. Go find out about condensed curriculum and what are the methods the UNESCO is using so that we address this learning loss. We need to address the learning loss moving forward. So to reimagine the moving forward in education, there are two things. One, to address the learning loss. Secondly, how can you use some technologies to enhance, especially for English language. There are so many resources out there, teachers, that you can use. And don't worry about your students, yeah? They will find the way to get to those resources. Your role is to encourage them to use those resources out there. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I'd really like to give some time for questions from the floor, but can we end with Prof. Suresh talk about, we talked about how teachers become an easy target, often to blame for, issues which, there is some valid arguments along those lines. Can you talk a little bit about the role of leadership as well in ensuring quality education?
Yeah, thank you, Ramesh. I just want to also take up the point from the points that were just mentioned. A father and a son went to a camp in the hills. They built a tent, and they were sleeping in the night. Then suddenly the father woke up the son at 2 a.m. 2:30 a.m. They woke up the son. He woke up the son and said, what can you see? So he looked up. Papa, I'm sleeping. I know, but what can you see? Oh, I can see the moon. Oh, very good. What else can you see? I can see the stars. What else can you see? I can see clouds. I can see the beautiful sky. The father said, stupid, you can see all this because somebody stole our tent. So the point of the story is, sometimes we see many far things, but we cannot see things that are nearby. So the point of being mentioned is that in the students' population also, when someone is weak, we did this in 1999. We went into a government school. The headmistress said that the A class, B class, C class, D class, E class. E class students are really bad. They don't come to class. They're not motivated. And the marks in the languages and all that are very poor. And the teachers didn't know what to do. So I told them, because I went to see the headmistress, I said, you give it to us. Hey, we cannot give it to you because they said that outside people cannot come into the class or into school. So what happened was the Parents Teachers Association, they took the responsibility to say, Prof, if you have the modules, come inside. So the Satyasai Academy for Human Values, with a team of 12 volunteers, entered into the class on Friday between 7:30 to 8:30. They gave us 1 hour for that class. And these boys, they come to class at 8 o'clock, 7:40. They are not interested to study. The total marks, English will be 5 marks, Malay will be Bahasa, like that. The marks are not exceedingly high. Very poor means very poor, okay? And they're mixed, all Bangsa, Keluarga Malaysia is there. Okay, so now, so when we went inside and started doing this work, we built the confidence based upon relationship. So we were asked to interact with those people, and we built the confidence. Every Friday, we used to go and play games with them. The students started to come in close, and then the Parents Teachers Association sponsored the children to go to a camp. We had a camp in Podixon. We came back, and they were all azam. The inspiration was so high. The principal came, and he came. The students came to the principal and said, Madam, please, we want to have tuition. They got a shock. The principal, hey, you don't even come to class. How are you going to have tuition? No, they are prepared to teach us. We want tuition. So every Saturday, this whole team of people used to go and give tuition class. All the students used to come there. To cut a long story short, 70 students, it came out in the newspaper, the headmistress came on site and said 70 students who are sure to fail got through the SPM. This was the SPM class. They got through, and the parents came and literally kissed our hands and said Barshukor and all these things. So the point of the story is that no student is a poor student. No student is stupid, or no student is silly. It's just that they don't know how to be good. Hey, they don't know how to be intelligent. The whole purpose of a teacher is to connect the student to the knowledge. So the real fault is the teachers, because they're not inspiring enough. So when we had a session with the teacher, I did a teacher training, I did a teacher session on top of the second floor of the school. Ground floor, our trainers were giving a tuition class. And I opened the door and I said, look, your normal class, they don't come. Look at tuition class. They all are coming. They're doing free classes, they're coming and giving there. So who is now the problem? The point of the story is that, that's why somebody said, who is greater, mother or teacher? The boy replied, teacher is greater. You say, why? Yeah? Because mother can only put one child to sleep, but teacher can put the whole class to sleep. So that was a gauging point. So the thing is, what we are looking at is that because the standards have gone down, it is the teachers, to add on, the teacher has to now come up to another higher level, a different level. No choice, because people have become like that now. More inspiration, more connectivity, more heart relationship, because we have shown, as a result of that, the headmistress told other schools. Subsequently, over the years, they kept on inviting us to 2-3 other schools who were having these problems, and we used to go and do this program for them to how to change and how to transform students. That's what the academy does. And one of the methods we're using is ROSE program, but we did this program called STAR, Student Training in Attitude and Responsibility. So this is in line to talk about academic. I always say I have about 20, 25 PhD students and master students. I always tell everybody else, if we call it the inner world and the outer world. Outer world is where the children and the youth are and the students are. If you find a difficulty in the outer world, it is because the inner world, something is not right. Inner world, that means we now need, using the students, we use to increase our consciousness and our level of awareness to a point whereby we now address the issues of the students. Everything is like that. So if someone is weak, it's because now I need to hire my strength in order to address those weaknesses. For that, you need time. For that, we need concentration. And for that, we need to see what is near, which comes back to the story, where you can see the moon and the stars, but sometimes we do not see what is closest to us. And I think that is the point of the story. Thank you.
Point taken, Prof. I mean, it takes a village, right? But for English language teachers, I think their reaction to perhaps even listening to you would be what they want us to understand, and I think we see evidence of this, is that it's not just about walking into a classroom and dedicating your time to teaching English language, but it's this multitude of roles that teachers have to play and the kind of tasks and responsibilities that are given to them in school. And I think when we talk about reimagining English language education, we've also got to address those issues, because the reality is that we see reports about the number of teachers who are retiring early. There's a message there that that is a cry for help. So I think that is something that has to be addressed as well as we talk about, reimagining English language education. We have some time, and I'm happy to open the session to questions from you, the audience. Questions or reactions or comments to what was shared by the panel, if you have any. Otherwise, we're going to continue talking. Yes. I think there should be there's a mic here. Could you just state your name and where you're from, please?
Hi everyone. Good morning to the panelists. I am Mr. Nathan from Johor Bahru. I'm a secondary school teacher, and I used to read columns by Tan Sri and Azimah, Datin Azimah. I used to read columns from NST. I read NST to improve my English, but now I'm not reading anymore because NST has become very creative in their reporting. So I have stopped reading. As what they say, our students, they undergo 5 years, 6 years of primary education and 5 years of secondary education, but still they are unable to produce a decent sentence in English, which means we are utter failure. We teachers, utter failure. Or should I say, we are a successful failure. And if comparatively, if we look at two personalities, Jackie Chan, a film personality, and singer Celine Dion. Celine Dion is from Canada, and she went to New York. Within 1 year, she could speak good English. She could give interviews in English. Same goes to Jackie Chan. When he was in Hong Kong, he could hardly speak English. But when he went to New York, within a year, he could conduct seminars like this. What does that show? The environment. We need to change the environment, the whole environment, to give the students opportunity to practice English from a very young age. But that is not going to happen. That's why they mooted the idea of English schools. We can talk until the cows come home, but that is not going to happen. And at least as long as we are around, that is not going to happen in Malaysia because of political interference. So it backs to the teachers. It is in our hands, as what Dr. Kaur said. We teachers, we have immense power in the classroom. We can bring about changes, but by utilizing all the resources and whatnot, we can make the students to improve their English, if that is our ultimate goal. That is very much in our hand. My presentation today is how to make our classroom happy. That is what I shared with my students, my teachers just now. Changing the seating arrangement, changing the teachers' attitude, the way they deliver the lessons, everything. We have to experience a tectonic shift here. We have to go there, not as a civil servant, as an artist. We have to showcase our talent. We have to entertain the students to bring about the changes. And lastly, what Tan Sri said, he doesn't see the candles anymore. The candles are still very much out there. In the universal darkness, we are the flickering candles. But we hope for the best, and if we could lighten a few corners in the universe, we will be very happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Anyone else? Any questions? Yes?
Can I just interrupt, Dr. Ramesh?
Yes.
Can I just hear me?
Where am I? Oh, sorry.
Before that question comes, can I just interrupt? I think what's important is that teachers use the parents as a resource tool. I know you all have got so little time in your timetable, but impress on parents that you need their help as well. And how the parents can help is the parents don't realize that they can help, and even though they have been helping, they don't realize that it's actually good for the students. So parents can help in immersing students in English. For instance, taking them to the movies. The kids will love that. That is actually immersion, but make sure you get the right movie lah, you know. I don't think Mak Kila will help, you know, but, you know, take them, and even the movies also, the English movies actually have better vocabulary than the US movies, because the US movies have a lot of action. The English use their vocabulary very well, and their vocabulary is much wider than the US. So even if not to the movies, you know, TV, Netflix, when I don't know about them, but when I was in primary school, we had only black and white TV. It was so boring. You didn't even bother to watch, you know. But now you have, and then we had this generation of students where you had Astro in the homes. So Astro was just playing left on, and a lot of students speak like what you get from Astro. They had that generation. But now you have a lot more. You have Netflix. You have so many other things. You know, so actually learning English shouldn't be as difficult as it used to be, because there are so many resources all around the house. It's a matter of just having it on without even subconsciously having it on without even realizing it. Okay, thank you.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning. Hello, Dr. Ramesh. Hi, everyone. My name is Aisha Muhammad Hamdan from Ipoh, Perak. Okay, it has been so wonderful listening to all the panel speakers. I was actually like in charge of my booth outside listening to you all, and I just had to come in, right? And I have this question. Every time a speaker spoke just now, I had questions popping to my mind, right? Honestly, I couldn't ask all the questions. But what concerns me is this. When it was mentioned that we are towards 21st century, in fact, we are in 21st century. However, education is not like sailing the way it should be, as mentioned by one of our speakers. It seems as it is, but it's not really the way things are being conducted. Teachers are still restricted to many like traditional things, for example, but maybe not here. Because as we know that teachers here, they come on their own, I would say, personal motivation. Everybody is so inspired and aspired by everything, but our grassroots teachers down there from all subjects could be like left behind in terms of embracing these changes and reimagination of English language education, for instance. So my question is, could it be our leaders, I mean here PGB probably, I'm not saying all, but instructional leadership, how strong it is in our system? Because as I could see, non-governmental NGOs, for example, as Pemimpin GSL, Teach for Malaysia. Now they're going strong in educating, teaching, as well exploring all these possibilities where instructional leadership is concerned, because these are the leaders who are leading us. We are like following, you know, it's like the direction that we are following according to the steering of our PGBs, for example, JPNs and PPDs. But we know deep down, and we know the reality hits that when it comes to academic, I would say, post-mortem, audit academic in schools, for example, the question is always like, the GPMP is, and sometimes it made me think, teachers are stressed out because you ask them to be creative, PBL and not many can actually see that all these actually lead to, I would say, good result by the end of it. It could, because some of us, we have tried and it worked, but not everybody could see and embrace that. So how does this work in our system? Thank you. Hi, Dr. Ramesh.
Aisha, can I just ask you, do you regard yourself as an instructional leader, as a teacher? Are you an instructional leader?
I think I am, but I have a lot more room to learn and improve.
Right.
Thank you.
I just want to give a shout out to Aisha. Aisha was the recipient of the Hyacinth Goddard Outstanding English Language Teacher Award that Malta gave out at the conference this year.
Thank
so
you,
it's
Malta.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Malta.
Yeah, thank you. So I think someone mentioned instructional leadership just while we were, discussing before the panel. Ansri, maybe do you want to just add a little bit about instructional leadership?
I was just relating to the Sekolah Amanah, the trust school, where the headmaster must be an instructional leader. He's not just an administrator who lies between the Kementerian and the school, attend all the big meetings. He must be a role model in the school itself, so that people will see who the master is and what responsibility that he also takes as far as teaching is concerned. And at the end of the day, I think education is about change. If you have education and you got someone saying that we have not moved, then education to me has failed. As simple as that. You know, it's education is about change. I mean, think about it. When we go to what I am now, it's all because of schools. So imagine if you go to school and then you decline, it's even worse. But if you don't change, I think the school has failed. Education has failed, not necessarily school, including the universities. So I think this instructional leader is about that. How do you bring about this change? And it's not going to be easy because there's so many things that is related to it. But I think that is the crux of it. How do you bring change to the individual? And if my preference is change yourself first before you try and change others. It is inside-out sort of activity. And this is where I'm very strong on falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. You know, that's the trust that we move forward. And I find that is totally missing in many of the schools as far as, you go back to your school and find out, is there falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan hanging somewhere? Dulu we have got, yeah, di belakang buku Rukun Negara. Where is your falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan? How is it that all of us can go into education system without understanding the philosophy of education? What are we doing? You cannot go into Petronas without understanding the philosophy of Petronas. They'll throw you out. But here we come in droves into a system that we don't even understand what the philosophy is all about. If you do understand, you cannot interpret it. And we have seen these examples now when you talk about sejahtera. Everybody have their own way of understanding sejahtera without even referring to the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. You're going to kill another generation. And I think that's our responsibility. Our responsibility is bigger than anybody who constructs a car. You know? We are constructing a mind. If we cannot construct it well, then I think we're going to fail one whole generation. Pandemic is an example, but before that, there's a lot of other pandemic, because nobody died, so we don't care. Yeah? But changing the mindset, I think, has been a problem in school, and that's what, from my point of view, an instructional leader is all about. If you cannot do that, then it becomes a rote learning. I sometimes feel that education now is about teaching students how to ride a bicycle. That's about it. Once they know how to ride a bicycle, they don't know where to go. They don't even know how to look after the bicycle. Yeah? And you can change, you can train monkeys to ride a bicycle, you can train a dog to ride a bicycle. But what we want to have is, how can you train our students to think? And we cannot train monkey how to think and dogs how to think. That is education. To me, that is what instructional leadership is all about. I don't know whether I've got it right, but maybe you can put me right. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 5 minutes left. So can we, yes. So perhaps to wind things up, your last thoughts, your parting thoughts on reimagining English language education. Maybe each of you can take a minute to share your thoughts. Maybe we'll start with you, Tan Sri, since the mic is with you. Is that, you have, yeah, whoever has the mic, your parting thoughts on reimagining English language education.
Okay, see, we are still united. Use the same mic. Okay, I think the last thoughts is that what came to my mind is that in the war, we send soldiers out, and then the soldiers are battling and fighting and making sure the country is preserved. I think the same imagery I get for the teachers, because really, we honestly feel very sympathetic to the teachers, very empathetic to the teachers, because your job is not easy. It's not an easy job. And children are changing, landscape changing, everybody harahan, and you're running around. Sometimes you go for meetings, you don't know what the meeting is all about, but you just keep on going for meetings. I think the main thing I feel is that the way to come together is that, as what the speakers have said, the school, the teachers themselves should group together, should in the staff rooms and all that, because you cannot expect anything else to come from outside. So the comradeship and the unity among the teachers to help to manage the students must now become more enhanced. Number two, when you see a student who was weak in a class and he's going to the next class, I think it is important for us, for the teachers, to make sure that the other teachers know where the weaknesses and strengths are on, so that the building of the confidence continues and not reinvent the wheel to look at where the weaknesses are on. That's the second point we need. So third point is that because as what Ramesh said just now, that we need to see the whole community needs to come together to develop the child. So confidence is a very critical component, but the confidence of the teacher exudating through the personality is one amazing way in which the transference of it can take place. So the level of confidence among the teachers must go up, and you should take advantage of all the technology that is there. And we ourselves say that I want to be a good teacher. I want to be the best teacher. Whatever said and done, by the time I retire, I want to touch many more people's life. I want to make sure that I leave behind a legacy. I want my school to leave behind a legacy. I want to make sure that my students who leave this class, if anybody who's weak here, we want to make sure they pick it up, and by the time you go off, they come to you, terima kasihlah cikgu, kerana because of you, I'm able to speak the language. Thank you so much. If that kind of relationship is developed, aspiration is developed, vision is developed, I think schools can really flourish, and the ministry themselves can achieve the purpose. And some of the examples that Tan Sri talked about, the trust schools, there's no necessity for your school to be trust, but if you can pick up some of these ideals there and infuse it in your system, we got it. That's all. So sometimes we don't need to change the entire elephant, you know. We just pick up some of these ideas and pick it up in your class. As far as you are concerned, and as far as your class is concerned, make a difference. And that's why teachers are mad. Mad means MAD, make a difference. So make a difference in your class, make a difference in your school, make a difference in your life. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to remind us there is this opportunity now coming. I'm sure you have read. One of the trust schools now has been voted among the possibly three finalists about the best school in the world. The best school in the world. One of it is a trust school somewhere in Kuantan. Nobody knows about this school. No, it has been enlisted now to be among the three finalists. We are going to vote for this. I think now is an open vote for everybody to vote. If they won this by the end of October, Malaysia has got a best school in the world. What else do you want? You know, with all the talks that which this school is best, this is one example. A trust school so happened, which is going to be among. I mean, even though they don't win, to me it's enough to be listed 3 among the best in the world. In other words, we can make it. In other words, the model is there. In other words, there are things that we can do to make other schools the same. What else do we need? You know, but Malaysia is such that when we do something good, we don't recognize it. But when a neighbor do something good, we say, hey, look at the neighbor, they do something good, you know. But the neighbor is learning from us. I mean, Singapore is learning from us a hell of a lot. They just have their Formula 1 at night, recently, and they learn from Malaysia, from the Malaysian punya Formula 1. Yeah? So they are learning from us, but we are not learning from ourselves. And I think that's a great disadvantage. So please have this confidence so that we will see one of our schools become the best in the world, and I think it will change the whole mindset, inshallah. So thank you very much for your attendance. I'm very happy with the session today. Thank you.
Yeah, Datin,
Okay. Yeah, I just want to pick on Aisha's instructional leadership and Tan Sri. I think going forward, we need great instructional leaders, because only if the principal in the school has got instructional background, they can understand what the teachers are going through. So I think we need to lobby for that, because 2 things can happen. One, the administrative load of teachers can be supported when the principal themselves understands it truly. Number 2, the pedagogical approaches can be improved if the leader is an instructional leader. So I think these two things, Aisha, thank you for bringing this up. I think these are important. The rest of it will flow. As they say, when a fish stinks, it stinks from the head. So we need great leaders up there so that it filters down to the teachers who then become great leaders in their own classrooms, because a great leader gives confidence. I think this word about confidence is very important, because when the leader speaks confidence, the teachers themselves will then start supporting each other. They will themselves become more positive towards each other. So we need that kind of a leadership as well for better transformation. So that was what I wanted to pick up, and thank you.
My last thoughts is that making a difference, right? Teachers are mad, right? Making a difference. You may not feel the difference when the child is still in school and you're still teaching the child. But once the child leaves, and he leaves the school with a high proficiency in English, the jobs will just start coming after him, you know, I notice. You know, so it's, you may not feel that you're making a difference, but once the child leaves school and the jobs keep coming, that's when you know that you've made a difference to the child's life. And with that good job, which he has because of his high proficiency in English, will not just benefit him, but also benefit his family, and it's because of him that the quality of life of his family will raise as well. That's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. So Tan Sri, Prof. Abtar, Prof. Suresh, Datin Azimah, it's been a pleasure moderating the session, and thank you for your participation. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this session, and I will pass the session back to the MC.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ramesh. And another round of applause to our wonderful panelists. All right, thank you, Dr. Ramesh, and to all our prestigious panelists. Such enlightening sharing of stories, ideas, and experiences. A lot of anecdotes, a lot of acronyms we learned today. MAD, ROSE, ARCS, okay? And reimagining English language education in a post-pandemic world. Keep on dreaming, keep on reimagining. Okay, indeed, the issues discussed today are pertinent to us all, educators in this fast-changing and volatile world. We need to be adaptable and open to all the changes and dare to dream, to stay relevant. Okay, another round of applause to our dear panelists. Thank you so much. It was a very engaging, interesting, and fruitful discussion. Teachers, have confidence in yourselves and help your students to be confident in themselves as well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, next in the schedule today are parallel sessions as well as 3 interesting workshops held in rooms Ampangan 1, Ampangan 2, and Razak. Okay, with that, thank you very much once again, and have a wonderful morning, and do enjoy the rest of the program today.